There we are. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to DoubleBookedCo's live discussion of Mandy by Julie Andrews Edwards, which is a mouthful. And obviously, we most popularly know her as Julie Andrews. So it's weird to say Julie Andrews Edwards. But I listened to the way I got the book, because I couldn't find it anywhere, was an audio book, I guess, on YouTube where Julie Andrews actually reads it herself. And when she says Julie Andrews Edwards, it sounds more natural. So it is what it is. But welcome as you come in. Say hello. It looks like Andy is here.
Hello.
Gamer is here.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you both. As we kind of start our stream here, we want to just remind everybody about our April pick. So the book club book that we'll be reading in April. Laura, if you want to remind everybody what that's going to be.
This is very glary. The Color of Air by Gail Tsukiyama.
Go.
And this is about 300 pages. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I did verify that is also on Hoopla. You can get the audio version and an ebook version. So they're both available on there, which is really nice. So
yeah. And as of last week, it was a Kindle deal for $2. So if you wanted to buy it on Kindle, $2.
That's not bad. Looks like Debbie's just joined us. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
So yeah, I'm excited to read that. Looking over the synopsis again, it sounds really interesting. So I think coming off of Amy Tan's book, it's kind of like, if you really like that, it's kind of like you want more of like an Asian American story. So I'm kind of excited to continue that route. And I believe this one is Japanese American as well. So a little bit different, as Amy Tan's was Chinese American and more so Chinese. But yeah, very excited. Good. Very nice. I know for me, it's I used to go to the library a lot, right? But right now my library is going under a reconstruction. But they're like taking their sweet time with it. And what they did is last year in April, so it's been a full year now almost, that they basically moved all of their books to a temporary location across town. And I don't like that side of town. Like, I don't like going over there because there's a lot of traffic. The roads are all crazy. I don't like driving that side of town. So I've been really relying on Hoopla for anything. So I was really happy to find The Color of Air on there in both audio and ebook. So I've already downloaded it in the ebook version because I kind of been really enjoying reading the ebook because I feel like I have more flexibility with that.
Yeah.
But I like that I have the option of the audiobook. If we get down to the wire and I'm falling behind, I can put it on a higher speed and try to do it while I'm doing other things. So very excited that I have that availability. So
nice.
Yeah. And then for all of us that may be interested, we do have some reading sprints coming up next week. So after our Etsy drop for our new products at 8 p.m., we'll do reading sprints at 8:30 on Tuesday, April 4th. So that's next week, Tuesday. And traditionally, Laura and I start the book of the month on those reading sprints. So you can read whatever you'd like. You can be editing or doing dishes or just sitting and staring at us, whatever floats your boat. But I'll be starting the book then, for sure, that I have that e-copy. So I'm excited.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I suppose I could have been putting any of this up here, but in case you need the spelling of the author's name, there you go. And like I said, we'll do reading sprints on the 4th at 8:30. Let's see here. Tonight, however, we're going to be discussing Mandy, which is a middle grade read. I think this was written in the 70s, I believe. It was published in the 70s.
Yeah, I'll double check, but yeah. I'm almost positive.
I started and finished it today.
1971.
Yep, I thought it was 71.
Mm-hmm.
All while the baby was sleeping. I got it all done. So I hope it's the whole book. The way YouTube had it set up was like in 4 parts, which I'm assuming is how the book is set up, like spring,
by season.
summer. Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming that it was the full book. I can only hope. But yeah, so let's kind of get into that. And as always, we start every book club live discussion with our rating of the book. So if you are rating your book, we go by the Goodreads standard of the 1 through 5, 5 being amazing. So let us know in the comments what your rating of Mandy is. Laura, do you want to share what your rating was of the book?
Yeah, I really liked this. I'm giving this a 4. It reminds me so much of books that I read when I was a little kid, because I grew up in the 80s, so a lot of the kids' books are from the 70s. So that sort of really old-fashioned, slower feel is really appealing to me. I really enjoyed that. And it's not too like twee and precious or overly sloppy, or I don't know. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this, and I'm going to try and find some more of her books that aren't just picture books. I think she has 1 or 2 more that are kind of like this, but yeah, I really like this one. So for sure, 4 stars. How about you?
I feel like I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one because, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I feel like I've read so many other books that are so similar in nature that I feel like it was just like kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different ideas from other books. Not to say that she was taking from other books, but I definitely think there was a lot of influence from other books. Or because I've read all of those books, all I could think of was those other books.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a good story. I really enjoyed listening to Julie Andrews read it because I love her voice, obviously. So I would say it's probably like a 2.5 for me, like edging towards that 3. But for me, it was just kind of like, I feel like I've read better books about orphans in that kind of, I don't know. It was like Jane Eyre / Little Princess / Secret Garden / I just kept thinking about all these other books that I've read that really were so reminiscent that I just was like, I like the other books better. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think it was poorly written. I wouldn't say that. But in general, I feel like it's a forgettable book for me.
All right.
Yeah. So, sorry.
No. Don't apologize. That's how you feel. I haven't read Secret Garden, and I haven't read Little Princess, and I haven't read any of those classics. I've just never read them. So, I know those reference points.
And I think I gave Secret Garden like 3 stars just because there's a lot of like,
it's not a lot of moralizing in there, kind of.
Yeah, there's a really heavy-handed like illness, like chronic illness that kind of just like get some sunshine and you won't be ill anymore kind of thing. And it's kind of like, that's not really how it works. But yeah, and the same author for Little Princess. But I really did like Little Princess. And of course, Jane Eyre is just awesome. And actually a little bit of Wuthering Heights I got too. So yeah, it's weird. Like I just, the whole time I was reading it, all I could think of was like all of these other books that just it kept reminding me of. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And it's funny because of that, all I kept imagining in my head was Shirley Temple. Like as Mandy. Because I'm like, if they made this into a movie, it would star Shirley Temple. Because Shirley Temple was Heidi and she was She was the little princess or girl or whatever, and so it just cracked me up because I know you don't like her. So it
really
making me
don't.
laugh because I know you really like this book. And then all I could think of was little Shirley Temple in the garden, you know. So let's see what everyone else had to say. It looks like Andy rated it a 3 stars. Debbie, 5 stars.
Nice. Yeah.
Rated it based on if I was younger reading it, which that was super for, obviously, yes. That's a good way of thinking. Like, how would you rate it as a child? That's a unique way of thinking. I don't often think like that.
That's how I rated it too, based on my feeling. Like if I was a kid, I would have loved the heck out of this book.
Yeah.
And I still really enjoyed it. But, you know, that's what I made me feel like I was a kid again, sort of.
Yeah. And you make a good point, Debbie, loving the illustrations. For me, unfortunately, I was only reading the audio, so I didn't have the illustration. So that could have maybe changed my idea of it as
so
well.
Many. I really love them too. Let's try and show one, but of course I can't find anything. I mean, it's all just old-fashioned black and white, but
yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to see this one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, that would have helped me too, because it would have kind of solidified the scenes more. Yeah,
it's a lot of detail, a lot of little detail to look at and stuff. Anyways,
very nice. Andy mentions that she finished the Return to the Secret Garden, felt the same about that, Orphan's Garden, etc. Yeah. I think it seems like there's a lot of orphan books. So, like, it's weird because how many different ways can they actually go, especially in the same time era, same general area in landscape and whatnot. Like Secret Garden is England and Little Princess is England and this one's England and Jane Eyre is England, you know, like, so it all feels very samey. But well, I figured I'd hit somebody the wrong way.
I know,
Out in
right?
the sun I go. I know. I read The Secret Garden with a group of people back in 2020, right when COVID hit. So
I remember that.
We were all in quarantine, obviously. And that year was probably one of the best springs we've had in a long time, because it was March, because it was middle grade March, and it was actually becoming spring outside while I was reading the book. So it was very atmospheric, because it was like you were reading the book, and at the same time, if you looked outside, it was spring. So at first, it was really hitting the right tones for everybody. And then all of a sudden, we started to hit the chapters where we meet Colin. And Colin is a young boy that's in the house that has a chronic illness. It's not described as that, but as a reader, you know, like he has a chronic illness of some kind. And he's bedridden. And Mary, who is the main character, she essentially tells him he just needs to get out of bed and go outside with her to the garden, with her and her friend Deacon. And like all of a sudden he's cured, because he's outside in the fresh air and the garden and all these kinds of things. And as a kid, you kind of see that as like, because what I always thought, and now we're getting on a whole different tangent with a different book, but when I was a kid, they came out with the movie of The Secret Garden in the 90s. So I had never even read the book until 2020. My interpretation of that was just that the adults were like, you're sick, you're sick, you're sick. So they just never let him like breathe fresh air. So for me, I just thought it was more like all in everyone's head, like you're just going to be sick because your father doesn't want to see you, kind of thing. And until I actually read it and was like, oh no, he is sick. He's got he's got a chronic illness. Like there's like, there is legitimately something wrong with him. And getting fresh air isn't going to just like cure that. So yeah, so I have issues, and there's a lot of racial issues in it with the Mary comes from a part of England where she has a lot, or she had been living in India where they had a lot of servants and all that kind of thing. And then she comes to England and she like treats everybody really poorly. And it is a lot of like just racial discrimination. And it was really hard in the beginning. And I was like, how are we reading this to kids? Because I mean, there's stuff like actual verbiage and you're like, I don't think that's right. So anywho, that's Secret Garden for anybody who cares to know. But yeah, the orphan books, even today, are extremely prevalent in reading, especially in middle grade. It seems like every other middle grade book is about an orphan of some kind or orphans. I mean, one of my favorite series of unfortunate events, it's about orphans. So I don't know. I think it's because it takes out the element of the parents. So the protagonist can really kind of go off and do what they want because there's no one really holding them back in a sense of like, hey, you can't do that. Because I mean, in all middle grade books, where are the parents? Like,
right.
Why is no one telling you to stop? So, yeah. Let's see. That was my take 2 when I read it at age 10 or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always just thought like, oh, he's just there because the adults are forcing him to stay in bed. But yeah, when you read it as an adult, you're like, oh, huh. So the end of that little side tangent, the people I were reading it with, none of us had read it before. So when we got to that point, we were all like, and in our group, we had like 2 people who live with chronic illness and they were not happy. Like they were like, I just can't believe that they think that so they ended up doing a little bit more research about the author and like their involvement in certain circles and like kind of trying to dispute chronic illness, like that it's not a real thing kind of thing. So yeah, it was really weird, like really weird way to start middle grade March with Secret Garden, and the group just went in a way different direction than I thought. And that was like the first spring that I was even on BookTubes. It was like one of my very first groups that I was reading with. So I was like, I'm not sure if I was really nervous to be like, this is really racially like wrong. Does anyone notice this? Because it's like, you want to say something, but you don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers because you're like, does everyone want to just like read this like and pretend like nothing's there? Or can we actually talk like real talk? Like, yeah, this is not good. I remember, I think I was talking to you about it.
Yeah,
I was like, talking about it. I don't want to like make anybody mad, but like this is not good. Like there's issues here. And I did end up saying some stuff. And I think Rainey was in the group with me and she's like, yes. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for like seeing it too. If you have a chance to take a look at the intro, how she wrote it, she promised her daughter she would based on the cottage from Vacation. Oh, yeah. See, and that plays a big role too, is really understanding where an author is coming from when they write something. It kind of adds something to the story. I feel like Julie Andrews, because I've seen her on a couple of different interviews, more so now than back then, but I feel like a lot of her projects and her work are motivated by her children. She's written with her children. I believe her daughter, they do those picture books. She's a very much into her family, and she always has been. So yeah, she's a lovely lady. I really like her a lot. Love Secret Garden as a kid, but will not read it now. Yep. Yeah. Now that you've Yep. I agree. Okay. Anyhow, so we're past our rating of the book. So we're kind of like in the middle and very close to 5 stars. So very nice. So number 1, in reading Mandy, are there any ways you feel you relate to her? Maybe when you were a child or even now? So is she a relatable character? And if so, did you relate to her in any way?
Yeah, what did you think?
I think I related to the imagination she had, and the like kind of wanting to own something. I grew up with three younger brothers, so he had to share a lot of things. So I would have been like totally like how Mandy was, where she didn't want anybody else to find this. Um, and I'll kind of get into more when we get into another question about the cottage itself. But yeah, I think definitely relatable in the sense that she has a huge imagination that needs to be like utilized. Like I feel like she had all these responsibilities. You know, she goes to school and she, you know, has her friends and does what she needs to do at the orphanage, but then also she has a job and she talks about how she works overtime to pay for things and stuff. So it was interesting to see such a hardworking 10-year-old who kind of had very mature thoughts. And I think as a child, I was similar because I had three younger brothers, so I had a lot of responsibilities too. So I definitely think she's a relatable character, and I think kids could definitely see themselves in her.
Mm.
I don't feel like she was written out of um, context. I think she felt like a 10-year-old girl in that situation.
Mm.
I think any child in that situation becomes a little bit more mature. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I really did. I mean, only child and very often the only kid around. I mean, there were some kids in the neighborhood, but not a ton. Some of my friends lived about a half mile away, but I had a lot of time to myself and always like a very, very old person when I was a kid and very responsible and everything. And I had tons of time to myself. I mean, I am the only child and an introvert of two introverts. So it was a quiet house. We all read or watched documentaries. My dad was working on something or making something. And I had plenty of time to go off on my own and, do things. And I don't know, a lot of time on my head, a lot. So yeah, I really related to her quite a lot. It reminded me a lot of myself, especially um, my grandparents, my mom's parents built a lake house out. It's like about a 45-minute drive from where I live now. Um, and nothing huge or fancy, but it was nice to be on this lake. So we would spend weeks in the summer and a lot of weekends out there and lots of time to hunt for mushrooms in the forest and go swimming and play with frogs and turtles and pick wild raspberries. And, it's like a really old fashioned, idyllic kind of childhood that I'm so grateful for. But it's a lot of this too, a lot of time on my own to like watch and observe and, watch the bunnies hop or, whatever. It just, so yeah, I saw a lot of myself in Mandy for good or bad. I don't think I stole as much as she did. um, I only shoplifted one time when I was a little kid and I felt so bad. I came back and I paid for it. um, but yeah, I for sure see a lot of myself in her. And like you said, like any kid, very relatable circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
she's one of the older kids at the orphanage. So she's a little more trusted. She can have that part-time job and work overtime. And yeah, everyone knows her really well. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked her.
Yeah. Um, Andy brings up a good point, and Allie actually brought up some of these points in her messages. But Andy says she is a rule follower, and Mandy was a rule breaker. And
Mm-hmm.
Mandy and Andy. Andy is honest, and Mandy lies.
Mm-hmm.
Andy did not like her. Allie kind of brings up a few points as well. She had mentioned in our Voxer group how Mandy lies a lot and steals a lot and is like on a first name basis with a bunch of adults.
Mm-hmm.
And you think in that time era, like these adults being on first name, like being so cordial with all these kids seems a little odd. But all in all, I agree with you. A little bit more of a mature child. But yeah, the rule breaking is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not me at all. Like, I am
Not a
very
good
much the
role
person,
model.
like, the suggestion of disappointing someone, I will run the other direction. Like, I can't
Hmm.
do it. Even now, I have a hard time.
Yeah,
So, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, definitely. And
Hmm.
we'll kind of talk to that a little bit more in, I believe, the next or couple more questions. But kind of talking about Mandy and her imagination, she finds that shell cottage, I guess we'll call it. Um, did you have a shell cottage when you were a kid or something like it? I know you kind of mentioned that lake house, but is that kind of your shell cottage?
I mean, not really, because everyone was always there, and the family was always there, like extended family and get-togethers all the time, and friends sleep. I mean, it was a really busy place. But I did like in the backyard of my parents' house. There's this overgrown ditch, for lack of a better fences meet, and there was this really small little like opening I could just fit through. I was such a stick as a kid, like super super skinny. So I found this like little room just in this, I think it's honeysuckle bush or something. It was all grown in. So if it was spring or summer, you couldn't see anything, but I could see out everywhere. That was very much my little place. And I had like, tea parties as you do. And I had a good time, and my parents didn't know where I was. And finally my dad spotted me and tried to get in, and he got stuck. Like Winnie the Pooh. My mom had to pull him out. Um, but yeah, that was like my little area. And then one summer I was just too big and I couldn't fit back there. I was so upset. I was really, really
Oh,
upset. Like, oh, I lost my little hideaway place. Because we could never afford like a tree house or a playhouse or I mean, I had a
yeah.
swing set, and I was very lucky to have a swing set, and I'm very grateful. But yeah, that was pretty much like playing in a ditch, which sounds so ridiculous. But yeah, that was for sure mine. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Yeah, I have two memories of something similar to this. When we were kids, we would visit my aunt, and behind her house is like a huge field. And there was these huge bushes that like were just like these really thin like shoots of, gosh, I don't know, it was more in the fall where you could really like get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just these huge shoots and like huge like circular bush, and we would just crawl in there, my brothers and I. So it wasn't like an alone place, but like
Right.
we would all crawl in there, and it was big
Sure.
enough for all of us to have our own room.
Yeah,
And we
cool.
would like trample down the chutes so
Mm-hmm.
like it would make rooms, but we could leave other chutes to make like door
Sure.
hallways and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to like collect things and then bring them in there and like hide
Mm-hmm.
them in there. And then because like you said, from the outside you couldn't really see in unless like you brought too much of it down.
Right.
But once you were inside, it was just like it felt like a tree house. Like it was just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
um Now there are homes all over that area. There
I'm
aren't
sure.
any,
Yeah.
no field there.
Mm-hmm.
um but I just remember like when you're that age and you find something like that, it becomes a whole nother place.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's a bush. Like it literally is
Yeah.
a bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a kid, you go inside and now it's a rocket ship, or it's
Mm-hmm.
a little tea set house. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things. I remember we used to like, what are you doing over there? And you'd be like, I'm on Mars. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm doing this. And like, it was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then to show how immature I am, when I was then much later in life, like I would say like 14, 15, I used to go up north with a friend of mine who they had a cabin up north. Um, and they actually, so they had this really nice, like it was basically a home. It wasn't a cabin,
Mm-hmm.
but that was new. And next to that, they had like the original cabin, which was like
Mm-hmm.
not really much there. It was like a very, like 2 rooms and a living area with a small kitchenette that
Yeah.
they had. And then they built that house. But they left that construction up. And my friend and I would like find the key and like break in to
Yeah.
this old cabin,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's like hardly anything in there but like a few of the old dishes. And when I was reading Mandy, that's all I could think of was this
Yeah.
little cabin that we found. And the funny thing is it's probably because we are too old, but my friend was like not into it. I I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like, look at, like, oh, it's like we could play in here. And she's like, let's go snowmobiling. And I'm like, she's like, it's cold in here. I'm like, it's not as cold as it is outside.
Yeah.
Like, all I wanted to do is like play house. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're a kid, all you want to do is play house.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like as an adult, I play house every day, and I'm like, it was not as
I'm
fun as
over
it
it.
used to be.
No, I don't. Not a good time.
But yeah, I mean, even though I wasn't really a kid anymore, you still have those imaginative things that happen when you find yourself in a space that is not like the main space. Like it felt so cool to me to be in a space that was forgotten, kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just think like we could have fun in here, just the two of us. Like no one knows we're here, but she wasn't into it, so we left. But I always wanted to go in there and play and just like hang out and
have your own little spot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. So, it looks like while we were chatting away, we have Jessica joined us.
Oh, hey, Jess.
Hello, Jess. Yes, we kind of just chit chat. So at any point, you just kind of comment along the way, and next month should be good. It should be a good discussion. Sounds like a really good book. So excited for you to join us for sure. Andy had a tree house at grandparents' cottage on Long Lake. Played Rocky or Rock Shop in the lake. No shells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of rocks for me too on the lake.
Yeah. There aren't really any shells. I mean, how the lake that my friend was on, not a lot of sand. It was like all trees. So like where you would get on where she was, they like must have dug it up farther. So it wasn't a lot of sand. So yeah. Yes, it was. I used to pretend I was an English teacher in my grandparents' attic.
Nice.
Even had misbehaving kids. Decades later, teaching high school, I remember thinking the misbehaving kids were easier in the attic.
And no parents to deal with too then? Yeah.
Yeah. I just love going into spaces that have been forgotten. Like Laura, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but when we went up to your upper level, like that to me is like gold. Like it's just so cool to be in a space that like no one really goes in and like finding treasures and like it's just I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all antiques. Like
And attics, older attics, like I have an attic. There's nothing good up there, believe me. I've put it all up there. There's nothing good up there.
Yeah.
But like when you go into someone else's attic and it's a real attic, like not just the crawl space. It's just so cool. Like you don't know what you're gonna find. You hope you don't find a dead bat or anything, but like it's cool. It's just it's cool to me. Yeah. Thank you. Well, let's move on to our next question. We kind of hinted at this already, but how does everyone feel about Mandy's deceit throughout the story? She lies, she steals, and she kind of considers the cottage hers, so much so that she gets really angry when her best friend Sue follows her there. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do we feel about this?
I mean, it's not great, but I also think it's pretty realistic. I mean, there was a stretch when I was a little kid where I lied all the time for no reason. I mean, I wasn't very old, I don't think. And I was just sort of doing it to do it. And my parents were pretty quick to like put the kibosh on that. And I figured out like, okay, never mind. But like babysitting kids too, like I feel like every kid I've watched, there was a streak a year where they just lied. And you're like, well, but I saw you do that. Like, I know you did it, but they're so involved in their own heads sometimes too, that it doesn't seem like such a big deal. I mean, as an adult looking at it, you're like, wow, this is like a huge string of massive lies. Like the deceit just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. Not great, but I don't know. I felt like it was kind of true in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Maybe not like, I don't know. even when she gets mad at Sue following her, like I've seen that play out in real life with kids, you know, like that, like this is my thing, and how dare you be here? And they get ticked off that this other person's there for whatever reason, whatever it is, or they took that one thing that looks like it was sitting there, you know, but apparently in their mind was a very active part of what they were doing. And I don't know. Yeah, not great, but I think it's pretty realistic.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I mean,
sorry.
You're fine. My stepdaughter, I've known her since she was 7. She's 16. Everything that comes out of her mouth, the first thing is always a lie. It's like they can't help it.
Yeah.
So definitely realistic there. My thing is like, I mean, I could get over the line because I get it because you're trying to hide something that's very important to you. And I think at one point she even says something like she wasn't trying to lie. So she was like trying to like answer the question truthfully, but like not really saying what it really was. So like she knew that she was lying and she was trying not to lie, but she was also trying not to get caught. She had a justification for everything. Every time she lied, every time she stole, every time anything happened, she had some kind of justification for it, which isn't good because now you're admitting to the fact that you really know that you're doing a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
My thing was the stealing. And yes, realistic in the sense that she's a kid, but the fact that she was justifying it with, oh, I'll just work a few extra hours and then pay for it, instead of I'll work the extra hours and then pay for it. She even says at the end when she returns everything and then she works a few extra hours to buy the things that she had stolen, she goes, oh, that was easier to do it that way. And I was like, yeah. So I think because she knew, like she really hardcore knew she was doing bad things, that's what kind of got me. Plus, because it is a work of fiction and the author has control over these things, I think as a reader, you always assume that the protagonist is going to do the right thing, in a sense, at some point. And she really just never did. And I think Sue really said it very poignantly. She was like, all of the good things happen to you, Mandy. And I'm like, yeah, they kind of do. But she's also not doing anything good. Like she's lying. She's, she's doing all these things. And then she gets sick, which lands her in the estate owner's home and then ultimately lands her with a home, which brings up another point that I found kind of odd regarding these girls' homes in general. But like it made me think about it in the fact that like I never really remember reading any books with orphanages at this time where orphans got adopted. Like it was just a place that they lived until they were old enough to have to move out. So it was interesting to even have the concept of like someone saying they were going to adopt her. And then the fact that they had to even look in the courts to make sure that they could. So that was really interesting to me. And it makes me really think like, these aren't adoptive homes. They're literally just, no one's claiming you. So you're just going to live here for now. So people really it wasn't like an option to adopt. It was just a home for them to live. So that was really interesting to me. Yeah. That was really interesting to me. That's like, that was the one thing that like I took away from the book that I was like, I kind of want to learn more about that because it made me think, it made me remember back to Jane Eyre, because that was really just a school for girls that didn't have homes. And they basically just came of age and moved on and basically just became governesses or whatever. So yeah, that made me think a lot on that. But I think the scene with Sue, yes, realistic in the sense that kids usually, when they want something that is their own, they do get upset when they're found out. But I feel like she was really a poor friend to Sue, like throughout. Because Sue was so genuine and like genuinely wanted to make sure she was okay and all these different things. And when she found her, she wasn't like, what are you doing here? Or why are you keeping this from me? She was like, oh, wow, look we could do this here and we could do this here. And Mandy was like, no, get out. So I was kind of upset with her as far as being a friend. I thought that was kind of like, I understand you're upset. However, like, Sue has been nothing but good to you. And I mean, how long did you think this was going to last? Like, you
Right.
think that it was going to be forever, that no one was going to see you go to this cottage every day?
Yeah, but kids
Especially
don't
with,
think about that stuff. They don't
oh
think
man,
about like, oh, in the future, like this is gonna last for like, no, this is just like, this is awesome. It has to last forever now. Like,
yeah,
this is my new way of living. Like this is
yeah.
it.
Well, even Allie in the Voxer group, and I'm speaking for Allie because she is in a time zone right now that is not cannot coincide with this time. But she had mentioned she thought it was really weird that these kids just are so free. Like they just kind of go off and do their own thing. I mean, she even stays back from the beach day and ends up, doing her own thing and breaking the shears and all these different things. So it was kind of like, is anybody watching these kids? I've never read an orphanage story where they're like free to just do whatever they want. So that was kind of weird in a sense, but
Yeah.
would not pass this. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
She's a little bit of too much of a liar for you. To me, she felt really guilty when she didn't tell the truth. You could tell she knew right from the wrong. She wanted something to call her own. Yeah. Well, and I think, but like, how much is that? Like, so how much does that outweigh the right thing to do? Like, she clearly was obsessed. It was it was an obsession. This cottage. And I'm not saying like a bad, like it wasn't terrible, but I mean, she got gravely ill from being in the elements because she had to be at this cottage. And lying to the headmistress and stealing all the things from the place, and then like breaking the guy's shears even though he told her like, don't touch these, they're new, they're sharp, you're gonna hurt yourself. Like, how does that outweigh just wanting something of your own? And I mean, I can understand being, an orphan and not having anything that's yours. I get that, but like, how much of that is like forgivable? Like, oh, sure, you can do all these things just because you should have something of your own. I don't know. You have to wonder, like, how did she think to go that far? Because I guess in my mind, I don't think she really had to do all of those things in order for the cottage to be something special. Like, she was already doing that by cultivating the garden and cleaning out the cottage itself. She didn't really need to have the plates and the silverware and all those things. I was actually surprised she was starting fires in there too. Like, I was like, that seems dangerous. Like, okay. And my thought too is like, no one's gonna see like the smoke.
Right. But because she couldn't see a house and she knew she was really far from the orphanage, there's nothing further than what you can see, as you're a kid.
Yeah. It reminded me of Matilda.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. When I was little, one of my best friends was adopted, and we didn't know for quite a long time, and then we found out that she was adopted. So I think there was like probably a year, maybe like fourth grade or something, third or fourth grade, where we talked about adoption a lot, and we talked about people who were orphaned or people who were given up or whatever. And there was a whole section that the school librarian pulled books about kids who were orphans or who were adopted, and this is all different storylines. So I read a whole bunch of stuff trying to understand my friend's thing too. So I think part of that maybe is why this seems familiar to me in a weird way. Like, aside from like, she's very insular in her little world, whatever, but I don't know. It just seemed like, oh yeah, this is just another orphanage story, and the kids have a lot of free reign and like whatever. I mean, we found out later that my friend was adopted when she was like 3 or 4 months old, but she just finally said like she was adopted, and she was like so ashamed. She felt so bad, and we were like, don't feel bad, when talking all about this stuff and everything. But it was interesting to learn about that. So I guess I hadn't thought about that as being different, but I don't know. It's weird looking back on your life. Like, you think everyone has these little experiences, and you realize people really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like when I was a kid, I sound like I'm 1,000, but like middle grade wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was just
Right.
like younger readers, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it was so old fashioned. And it was like the new stuff was like boys have cooties and like all like that kind of Apple paperbacks thing was like the new thing kids were reading, but otherwise it was just all really old stories. And I don't know. That was a
Yeah.
weird ramble. Sorry, but
No.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, Anne of Green Gables is another one I just thought of. That's orphan,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really good. I think she lies a few times in there too. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all kids do.
Yeah.
I think it's because it was such a center of this book. It just was like so
Yeah.
central. It was like, wow, this just keeps happening.
It keeps ramping up to the scales. Keep
Yeah.
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. She was rewarded for breaking the rules. Got to go to the
Yep.
big house and have her happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going to the big house. That's where it really reminded me of like Wuthering Heights when Catherine, like, what does she fall down and twist her ankle or something because they're getting chased by the dogs,
Oh
and they
yeah.
end up taking her in, and like she's there for like months,
Mm-hmm.
like taking care of this twisted ankle or whatever, and then that's when she ends up marrying the son or whatever, and then that's when Heathcliff goes off the rails. And yeah, I mean, so it was very reminiscent of that, and I was like, oh gosh, I hated Wuthering Heights. Like, please don't be reminiscent. But I figured that she'd get adopted by that family. I would pass it on. I actually thought about reading it to my nephew with a nephew of mine. Everyone isn't perfect all the time. I'll tell when she learned her lessons. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, Debbie. Like, everyone reads differently. Everyone has different experiences coming in. So rating it 5 stars is perfectly acceptable because that's how you feel about the book. I have a different opinion. Andy has a different opinion. Allie, Laura, everyone. So, and no one's wrong, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what great thing about book clubs is, because we get to kind of talk about that and see what everyone else thinks about it too, and the experiences that come along with that. So I think it's great. You know, taking the lying and the stealing and reading it like a lesson, and showing how she learned her lesson. And I think coming to a couple of questions that we have here, you know, at the end, ultimately what she decides to do with that cottage, I think really shows that redemption side of all the things that she did in order to have that cottage. So I think we'll come to that in a few questions. So no, you're not wrong. No one's wrong in their opinions of books. That's the great thing about reading. She was offered a little land for a garden, turned that down. Could have been something of her own, honestly. Yeah, it could have been. I think the difference there is because she found the cottage, it felt more like hers as opposed to be given a little strip of land from the gardener. I see where you're coming from, definitely. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, she's not gonna take that. And that's where it reminded me of Secret Garden, because Mary talks to the gardener first, and he kind of tells her about gardening and what she needs to do and all those things. And then that's how she gets the secret garden to come back to life, is she uses a lot of the tips that he gives her. So yeah, a lot of different books I was thinking about. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
It's children's fiction. I mean, even Cinderella lied about who she was. You don't have to back off.
No. I know. We talked to my mom about this book too, and she's like, I really want to read this. So I'm giving this to her when I see her in a couple of days.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's all about every book, every book you ever will read, you're going to come in with your own life experiences and expectations. There's a lot of books that I cannot stand that are 5-star reads for a lot of people, and vice versa. There's books that I think are like 5-star, I can't believe it, they're awesome. And then I'll read like some of the 1-star reviews, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how can you even say that? And it's just because we all come in with from a different world, you know? So yeah, no, you do not have to back off. That is the whole point of the book club. Please keep it coming. We're not here to change anybody's mind. We're just here to discuss it. I love the book Harris and Me by Gary Paulson. The boys in It Smoke Find Porn Break Rules. Lots of good talking points read to my kids, but this one rubs me the wrong way somehow. Yeah, I mean, because it just depends on where you're sitting when you're reading it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Because there's a lot of books, especially like cozy mysteries are a perfect example. The protagonist in a cozy mystery is constantly lying and being deceitful and breaking rules the entire time, because guess what? They're not the law. So they should not be interfering with open cases. It's called obstruction of justice, and it's actually illegal. But we love them. We love cozy mysteries. We love this protagonist who gets to, figure out who the murderer is right under the radar. We love that kind of stuff. So yes, it's like the same. However, here we sit and have our opinions about a 10-year-old lying about stealing soap flakes. So it is what it is. There you go. Maybe that's why you don't love cozy mysteries. Yeah. There you go. Well, let me tell you about a cozy mystery you don't need to read. Do not read any of the Hannah Swenson books, because they are the same book over and over and over again. Mm-hmm.
And at least the first 5 books.
Yeah, I haven't read the 5th one yet. I have that on my radar. I have it downloaded. I just need to actually do it. Okay, so we are on to number 4. What were your thoughts of Mandy's happy ending and her thoughts on what to do with the cottage? So her happy ending is she gets adopted by the family in the big house, the estate owners. What do we think about that?
I was happy for her that she found a family, because she really wanted to just really belong somewhere. And so I'm glad that she got that, because a lot of kids don't. I mean, they just stay at that orphanage, like you said, until they age out, and then you're on your own essentially. And I don't know. So I was happy for her, but I mean, it seemed a little quick at the end for some reason. I'm glad that they had that little drive with just her dad, I guess, for lack of a better term, her father and her, and they were like going around the property, and she had time to think about things and talk with him. And I thought that was a nice little add on, sort of, in a way, to give her a little more time to, I guess, redeem herself, or I don't know, whatever. But I don't know, I was really happy that she did. I hadn't thought about her becoming adopted necessarily. I didn't know how this was going to end, but as soon as she got sick, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is where it's going, But I don't know, it was nice. A bit tied up, really neat, but I don't know, I still liked it. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice way to end a book like this, because it is that happy ending. It's, we live happily ever after kind of thing. As soon as that all like opened up where he went to find her, I was like, oh, this is where that's going, which was nice. But at the same time, I was like, well, wasn't that convenient? I more or less felt really bad for like Sue, because of what Sue said, like, oh, all the good things happened to you. I was like, oh, it really does. Like, she's just going to move on. And I'm like, I really hope, because they like share an exterior wall, that she still like plays with her friends. And like, so when she said the part about, because she really, you could see the wheels turning when he was, I can't remember what his name was, Bill or Bob or something. Yeah. The dad.
Bill.
When he was like saying, oh, well, now that's yours. And what I really appreciated was that Julie Andrews gave you her wheels turning. Like you could really see she was like connecting the dots and thinking like, I have a home now. Like, I have a place to call my own with my family. I don't need the cottage anymore. Like you could really see that. Like to me, that was my favorite part of the entire book was the fact that she like came full circle, and instead of being like greedy about like this is mine, I don't want anybody else to have it, she became like, you just saw it in her mind the way she thought about it and was like, no, I want all of the children to have that as their place. And then we'll put a gate and we'll talk to the headmistress. And I really liked that piece that she was going to like basically withdraw from the ownership piece of that and share, because she was very greedy about it in that moment with Sue when Sue caught her kind of thing. And Sue, such a good friend, didn't rat her out right away, so I really liked that.
Yeah.
Her getting adopted, I mean, whatever. I mean, it didn't. I wasn't upset about it, but it didn't really like. Oh, that's so amazing! Like it didn't really catch me in any way, because it just felt like a natural flow of a book like this. I actually, when she was first with the family, I was like, oh, are they gonna try to be like betroth her to the boy? Because that's just how I think, because all of the stupid English books I read. And Henry VIII, like no one's ever too young to do whatever. But but yeah, I mean, it seemed like a right kind of ending, and I think the fact of sharing the cottage was just the perfect way to, for her character to evolve. So I liked that a lot. That really did it for me. If that wouldn't have happened, and if she would have been like, oh yay, now it's mine and I don't have to hide it from people, I would have been like, well, she really does get to do whatever she wants. All those things just happen for her. But I really liked that, and I don't know if I would really call it like a redemption, because I mean, she didn't really do anything egregious. Like it wasn't like she killed anybody. I don't know that I would call it like a redemption moment, but it was growth in her character as a child, and you could see too when she was spending the time with the family that like she was really seeing what her life could be. And it was so sad when she was like, I'm gonna run away. I was just like, to what are you running away to? Like, you have a pretty okay life, like what are you gonna do? I was so nervous. I was like, where is this book going? Like, what is she gonna do? And I didn't know how far I was in the book because I'm listening to a YouTube thing, so I'm like, I don't even know how far I am. So and little Sue, she's so smart. She's like, yeah, could you imagine if they would have come tomorrow, you would have been gone. And I'm like, yeah, you would have, Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it was a pretty decent ending. I mean, all things considered. Yeah, they should have chosen her sweet friend. Her sweet friend.
Poor Sue,
I know. Poor Sue.
I know. Felt really bad for her. But then she'll be like a better, I guess, top dog, lack of a better word.
I guess,
in the attic room. Yeah. I mean, like, she'll be a lot more nicer and welcoming, and include more kids, and
they'll be able to play in the cottage together. I mean, that's the only thing that I think of is like, well, I guess they're right next door to each other, so she can still play with her friends. They probably still go to the same school. But then I was thinking about that too. I was like, so Jonathan gets sent off to like a boarding school during the school year. So wouldn't she then get sent off to a boarding school? So like, how much did you actually miss her? Because you're not going to see her at all.
Right.
Because you're going to send her off to school.
Unless they keep her home for a year to like catch her up or see where she's at or give her time to adjust and then ship her off. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, but because I think way too much into things. My husband says this all the time. Like, we'll be watching a show or we'll be watching a movie, and I'll be like, that they will never do that. And he's like, it's a movie. Stop thinking and just watch the movie. And I'm like, but it wouldn't happen like that. And he's like, I'm not going to watch this movie with you. And that's how I am with books. I think way too far into things. I think too much, and then it kind of ruins it, especially when it comes to middle grade. So, yeah. Oh, anywho, let's see. Do we have any more questions? I think we're kind of tapped out of like main questions. We talked about a lot of the things that happen in the book, but does anybody have any recommendations for other books that are similar to Mandy? I know I mentioned quite a few that reminded me of Mandy, but are there any recommendations out there that you have come across that would be similar to Mandy?
I know. This was very much my question because I enjoyed this so much, and it wasn't like part of a series like Boxcar Children. I loved Boxcar as a kid. Like, holy crap,
Orphans.
Loved it. Yeah, orphans, and like scavenging and like finding stuff and like finding plates and like that was why is cutlery and dishware like why is that so important as a kid? But it really was. I was so into it too. Like my at the lake house, my grandparents had these little cordial glasses that were this high, like shot glasses essentially on a stem, and I would drink grape juice or water all the time. I thought it was so fancy, like, but kids are like that, you know. It's just strange.
Well, don't you remember, like, you would have the little caps from like your soy caps, and you would fill this. Oh, you know, like it's just, I know kids are weird. We're just weird.
I know. So yeah, I wanted to know like if there are more like this time period written like early 70s that stuck with you when you were younger. Because I'd like to read a little bit more like that. I mean, part of that too is just the time of my life where I am now. Like, my mom is my only living parent, my only real living family member, and she's got an incurable illness that's going to take her out. So like I am rehashing my whole life and going through everything in her house and starting to go through stuff in my house, and it's like really scavenging up all these memories and everything. And like stuff like this is really comforting to me. Like things are okay. See, why am I going to cry now? But it's like, oh no, things are going to be okay. And like, I know they're going to be okay. And that's life. But I always need an escape. That's what reading is for me. But I really I feel like I really need it right now, you know?
Yeah.
So if anyone knows of anything that's like this or a similar feeling or something they liked when they were kids, please let me know because I could really use it. And the Joanne Fluke series is just really straight up not doing it for me. It's really not. I will say I'm a little bit further. I'm 40% into this 5th book now, Dani. And it's not exactly as cookie cutter. It's pretty close, but it's just slightly different this time. So
we'll see about that.
I know. I could very well change my tune when I go to bed tonight and read it. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Like,
anyways.
I've never wanted to punch an author in the face so badly since Little B.
That's saying something.
Okay, so Andy says Return to the Secret Garden got 3.5 from her, so that's something similar. I agree, Debbie. When as Laura was talking there, I did think of Heidi. Heidi's really good. The book did not make me cry, but the movie did.
Which version?
I won't tell you because then you won't watch it.
Oh, yeah, no, I won't watch that one. Never. I'll watch that one. Never. Never mind.
But I did read the book as a kid, and I remember absolutely loving it. And then when I saw the movie, I mean, I'm a huge Shirley Temple fan, so it probably made it better because of that. But yeah, Heidi's really good. And I think because you really like landscapes and stuff like that, Heidi's very full of that. So Heidi's good. I don't know why we're making you laugh. We're talking about a lot of serious things here, Andy. I don't know why you're laughing. Oh, yes. Pippi Longstocking was really good. Another orphan. What is up with all these orphans? I loved Pippi Longstocking. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, on top of Pippi, I think like the cover art was similar to this, but it was a series of books like Mrs. some crazy name like Higginbotham or
yes, yep, Pickle Wiggle.
Piggle Wiggle. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, I used to love those books.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Piggle Wiggle. For gosh sakes. Okay.
Yeah.
My library's getting a workout for me, boy. Holy cow.
Have you read Anne of Green Gables?
No.
I think you'd love Anne of Green Gables. I think you should read that one for sure. I didn't think I was going to like it because you know how I am. I'm very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
But I am Aunt. What's her name? Now I forgot her name. Something with an M. Oh my gosh. No, it's. Whoa! I can't believe I forgot her name.
Oh my
but anyways, I am her.
Yeah.
Year of Miss Agnes and loved it. You know, Jess, who was with us earlier this evening, she just read that as well. And I think she gave it a pretty high rating as well. Oh, Rebecca of Stony Brook Farm. I've heard that is a really good one.
Oh, yeah. I also have the Emily of New Moon series by Ella Montgomery. I haven't read that, but I have that series too. If anyone has read that, I know what that's like.
Yeah, Andy, that one's fun. You probably won't like all her antics because you're so pure. But
I remember my mom has a copy of Heidi that she had when she was a kid, and I read that one. It's just a picture book, like very oversized picture book. Yep. So I don't remember a story at all. I just remember these like Alps essentially, and like
it's
being
good.
Outside.
Yeah, I should reread that one because I really only remember the movie now. But I remember I liked it. Yeah, the Year of Miss. It was the Agnes.
Okay.
Yeah, Miss Agnes.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yes, read Anne. See, I told you. See, I haven't read any more of Anne of Green Gables. I just read the first one, but I really do like. It was really good.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of orphan books. They're all orphan. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know if are there any other ones that I have read. Because, I mean, I just remember reading, like, a lot of Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary and all of the Fudge books. Because, yeah, I mean, middle grade was, like, it was just, like, early reader until you, like, jumped into adult books, like V.C. Andrews, which technically I think you could consider young adult because it was all, like, young adult protagonists. But like adult themes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess there was middle grade when I was middle grade, but it's not like it is now. Like, I don't recall reading because like Boxcar Children and I read Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I didn't really start reading true middle grade until I was in college. When I started reading like Series of Unfortunate Events and the Spiderwick Chronicles and that kind of stuff. So
those were cute. Yeah,
they were cute. I liked the illustrations.
Yeah, the movie is good too. That they made that one movie.
It was decent. Yeah, it was good. It kind of like tried to glob the first 5 books all together. Is kind of what it did. But I feel like the kid that they picked for the main 2 boys was a good choice. But yeah, I liked that. Yeah, I liked that a lot. It went out a little bit off the rails, but it was decent. Yeah. So any other topics or anything we wanted to cover from this particular story, characters, plot, anything like that?
No, I liked it. I don't know. I want my own shell cottage with no responsibilities. I can do what I want in there and go hide away. Pretend there's not dishes to do that never end or taxes to pay or whatever, Yeah. Just polish the walls, make a cup of tea. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I'm just remembering a piece from The Little Princess that reminds me of when the guy finds out that she's doing stuff in the little cottage, and then he's like leaving notes for her. Because I think that happens in Little Princess. Yeah, there's just a lot that I was like, this is from this book. This is from this book. This happened in this book. So I just think about all those other books. But yeah, let's see here. Nancy drew Trixie Belden. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Oh, really? Yeah, my mom read that when she was a kid, Trixie Belden.
Page 12 reading up from mom's shelf. Yeah. Yeah, my mom, I mean, so my mom has always been a reader. I don't think we had bookshelves ever. I don't remember any bookshelves or like owned books. But I know like all she ever read that I ever saw was Danielle Steele or like Anne Rule. And now like my stepdad's a big reader, but it's like Stephen King and like Dean Koontz and like all those kind of books. So now there's like bookshelves everywhere. But yeah, I never read off of her shelves. She didn't have anything. Yeah. And if you went to my grandma's house and you opened up her closet, which was kind of like a shell cottage because it was a walk-in closet, so you kind of went in there and you pretended. When you shut the door, there was a whole shoe sorter full of Harlequin romances. And I was like, oh. When you're 12 and you're just realizing you have boobies and you're like, there are some boobies.
Yeah. I know. I didn't have any of that when I was a kid. Like my parents read a lot of nature memoirs and nature writing and like fiction too, but it's sort of like Ellen Googe, if like Green Dolphin Street. There's really big like historical romances probably, but they just look intimidating when I was a kid. So we had bookshelves and stuff, but it was a lot of like nature stuff, a lot of Native American stuff, a lot of stuff about Australia and New Zealand and Tasmania and a lot of nonfiction. And then my mom's had like Dennis the Menace and Archie comic books and stuff and Superman comic books and stuff. So like I read that too, but it was tons of the library all the time. Yeah. Like we would leave with armfuls every week when we would go. Yeah. You know, I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then now I went the opposite way and like I buy everything I ever think I want to read. Like, this looks good. This looks good. Sure, I'll try this, you know. Yeah. 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 Love Ruby Lavender. Oh. There you go. Love Ruby Lavender by Deborah Wiles. Thanks.
Side note, did use Aw. That's cute.
That's nice. Yeah, it's perfect too.
That's nice. Well, thank you, Debbie. I like that sunflower one. That came in like
so pretty.
What other bookmarks do we have? That maybe some gnomes with that one. I think maybe I don't know. Can't remember. But I do remember packing that and thinking, "Gosh, this is so cute." There's a lot. I know. We have one. We have a customer who they're like need to match all of the books with their bookmarks. So it's kind of funny in the sense that like I never think like that, and now I do. So I'm just like, when I do get a bookmark, I'm like, what kind of like, so London, I'm reading.
What's the vibe? Yeah.
And I have a bookmark in the family tree, and I got one of the Alice in Wonderland ones because I'm like, it's from England. So here's the queen. Here's the queen, and she goes in there. Yeah. So, and then my other bookmark is actually, I guess it is a bookmark, but it looks like a library thing, but it's because it's like reminding me like how much I actually want to read in a month, so I can write on it. Otherwise, I'd probably have a bigger Alice in Wonderland one in there.
Yeah.
So, oops. Mom and stepdad still readers, but read a lot differently than me. A little crossover, but not much. Yeah. My mom and I really do not read a lot of the same stuff. She's more of a nonfiction reader, like true crime, and I'm not. I don't read a lot of nonfiction in the first place, but true crime is definitely not my go-to. But she does. When I think a book is pretty good, she'll try to read it. She really likes Frederick Bachman, so a lot of what I've read, she has read. She just showed me a historical fiction the other day, and I wanted to be like, you will not like it. Like, you're not gonna like that book. I haven't read it, but I know you're not gonna like it because you don't read historical fiction. So, yeah.
My mom and I read very similarly now.
Yeah.
For sure. She's always been a mystery reader, and I never really got it when I was a kid. But then I think what hooked me on mysteries, honestly, was starting the Stephanie Plum series. I think it was like 9 or 10 or something when I started reading that. And that was what hooked me. She was like, finally, my God, I have all these books I have to recommend to you. So half the books she reads are stuff that like I have already read. Like Mandy, I'm going to pass this on to her. And like I'm sure she'll like it. And like back and forth. And now she's like, you have to read this book. No, you have to read this book. Why haven't you read this yet? What's wrong with you? Like, it's sort of nice, you know?
Yeah.
Dangerous, but nice.
Yeah, it's funny because my mom, like I said, when I was younger, I mean, it was Danielle Steele. I mean, obviously my name is Danielle, so you know where that came from.
Yeah.
But like, she does not read romances now. Like, I've never, like, in the last at least 25 years, I've never seen her read a romance. So, it's all like true crime, nonfiction, some fiction, but.
Yeah, she recommended a fiction book to me, and I really liked it, but she read everything by that author then right away.
Oh, Abby Waxman.
No, it wasn't that. Helen somebody. Helen.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
She didn't realize they were essays, and she was reading it. Yeah, she thought it was fiction. She's like, I can't believe, like, this sounds really real. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a collection of essays. But, yeah. I think you're frozen, friend. Unless I'm frozen and I don't know it, but someone's frozen. In the comments, let us know if you can hear this and who is frozen or not. Let's see here. Use your middle grade March bookmark for all the middle grades. Yeah, they had a really nice collection come out of all of those. There you go. You're back.
I don't get it.
Hey. You lasted the whole thing.
Yeah, this is pretty good, considering.
Yeah, considering. Using your butterfly one for you guys in my adult book. It matches good depending on what cover you have.
Andy, how is the house search going? Oh, at least it wasn't going like or something weird.
Let me get this down here. That's right. She was looking for a house last time. But yeah, bookmarks. I mean, and I used to be really bad. Like, see this napkin here? That's a bookmark. Like, I just used to be like, what's near me?
What's around?
Now I'm like a little bit more into it. So, yeah. Looks like have offered to buy 5.
Wow.
Still searching.
That's
the market is terrible right now. My husband used to be a realtor back in 2018, 19, and it's as bad then as it is now. Like, he's like, it's not changing. He's like, it's going to be like this for a while. Speaking of houses, update on the burbs over here.
Yeah.
So those people all moved out. That was the last thing I told you guys. Like, in the dead of night, these people moved out. It was super weird. And then the house just sat vacant for like, what was it? It's been like a month, right? Someone comes and just shovels like the front sidewalk, but like not the path up to the door and not the driveway and not like the apron of the driveway. So it's just like the sidewalk so people can walk, because legally you have to at least do that.
Right.
But it has snowed a lot since they've been gone. So it's really awkward because like they're the only house on the entire block that looks really weird with all the snow in their driveway. Anywho, all of a sudden we start seeing like someone who looks like a realtor, and we're like, oh my gosh, it must be for sale. But like, no for sale sign, nothing. So we're like, what is going on? So I looked them up on Zillow because I'm a creeper. They're not selling. It's an apartment now. So they're like renting it. And if you can believe it, Their house is like small, but I guess it's like almost the same square footage as us, which means their basement's probably finished.
Right.
For like $2,200 to rent that house.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and they so lied because it says it's an attached garage. It's not attached.
It's not.
No.
It's like saying it's not even like saying my garage is attached. It's attached.
Yours is attached, but you can't walk in.
No.
Theirs is not even attached to their house.
No.
It's like, what? How is that attached? But anywho, so because they were like showing it, there's a bunch of people like walking in, and I was like, and I felt so bad because they're like having to walk over these mounds of snow because there's no way to get from the road to the house.
Yeah.
And there's this woman with like this baby. She was like maybe 6 to 8 months old, so she's holding it and like having to try to like climb over this big heap of snow to get to the sidewalk. And I'm like, nobody's helping her. I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna fall with this baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, every like other day there's someone in the driveway like doing something. They kind of like moved snow enough so like a car could get in. It's not good. And like we just got dumped on. We just got like 14 inches of snow here, and it's like practically gone now, like 2 days later, because it's been like almost 50 degrees every day again. So it's weird, but yeah, so that's gonna be a rental, which means that probably will nobody be there. But the kicker, I think I know why no one's moving it. Like, because remember how I said like every year, it's like every year somebody's gone. We're going on 7 years being in this house, and there have been 5 owners over there. And we think we know what it is. Because about 3 days after the first visit from the like person that looked like a realtor, the freaking exterminator was in there again. And every time someone moves there, we always see some kind of exterminator over there. So we think there is a major issue with something, like if it's mice or bats or something. Because every owner, like 2 weeks after they move in, there's an exterminator in that driveway. So if you think about it, like, would you live somewhere where there was something that you couldn't get rid of?
Yeah, no. Not if I had a choice.
I know. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so if you have a renter in there,
you're
like stuck because they have a lease. So I feel like it's just going to be a never-ending revolving door. I think they'll have a renter in there, and then they'll leave after the lease is over.
That stinks.
One we bid $35,000 over asking, 28 other bill. Yeah. It is. Insane. It's crazy. It is crazy right now. It really is. It's tough.
I'm so sorry, Mandy. Oh my god.
That really sucks. That sucks. Well, anywho, we're up to almost an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you guys too late here. I know I'll be jumping back on at 10 on my channel, Spinelli Speaks, for some reading sprints. So if anyone's still awake and you do want to join for some reading, you can certainly jump over there and continue in on my blabberfest, because you know how I am. But seeing as it's late, I'll probably keep it to a minimum because I don't want to be waking anybody up. But I will be reading London because I fell kind of behind on it. Because I wanted to get the first 100 pages done this month, and I'm still only done with chapter 1. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm hoping to get the next chapter done for sure. So if you want to join me, you certainly can. So that was Mandy. All in all, I think we all decided it was a great read. Something to think of for sure. And hopefully you all join us next month for The Color of Air, which I guess you could categorize as kind of historical fiction in a sense.
I think so. Let me see if it says anything on the flaps or anything about like a genre. Just says fiction, literary.
Yeah. I think it's going to have some flashbacks and whatnot in there, so more contemporary and whatnot.
Before we go, I'll tell you guys, because you guys would appreciate this. Okay, so I told you guys recently my cousin passed away a couple months ago, and I have been going through his stuff. So yesterday, I unexpectedly didn't have to work. My client was sick and canceled. So I was like, okay, let's try. I'm up, I'm showered. Like, what can I do outside the house today? Make myself leaving out of sweatpants. So I'm like, I'll take some stuff over to Half Price Books and sell it. So I had 2 kind of smaller boxes and 1 paper grocery bag. It was like half DVDs of his and then half like my books and half some books of his, right? So I go in there and she's like, well, we've really taken a hit on like DVDs because so much stuff is on streaming. People aren't really buying much. I said, that's fine. I'm not going to use all these, right? It's all like dude movies, very dude movies, and like a lot of Blu-ray and 4K DVDs. And like, I don't have those players, So it was like, yeah, these can all go, whatever, fine. So I'm wandering around and I got a copy of Harris, Edward Rutherford. It was a decent copy. So I'm like, okay, I have this if we ever want to read this, And I grabbed another couple of books, just like, well, whatever. And then she calls me, she goes over and she's like, okay, well, we can only offer you some dollars today. And I was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? I couldn't understand her. She said 71. It was $71. I got 71 bucks for 3 boxes, essentially, of stuff. I have no earthly idea what was in there that could have possibly been that valuable, quite honestly.
You didn't ask?
I was so stunned. She's like, here you go. I was just sort of like,
yeah. I went one time and they were like $8 for an entire box of books. And I was like, can you explain to me why it's only $8? Mm-hmm. And then she kind of like goes through all the books. I would have had her go through all the books and tell you which one was the one that popped it.
I know. Well, there was one Funko Pop in there, one of them.
Oh, that could be it too.
I was like, maybe that was the thing that did it. I don't know. But I was so stunned. So I got all the books I thought I could find. I got a whole bunch of books in the Hamish Macbeth series that I really like. And I still got $20 back. So yes,
I was going to say, so you didn't get any money back?
No, I did. I got $20 back. But still, I was so shocked. Like, when do you ever get that much money back? Never. So I was like, I gotta tell book people because no one's gonna believe it. Because it is awesome. Always like, here's $11, here's $4, So yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah. Yep.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. I just sort of was like holding my receipt, like, I don't what? Yeah. What do you mean? Anyways, exciting for me. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never hear about that at Half Price.
No, I'm sure it won't happen again because I have more books of his and books of mine and DVDs. I'm trying to break it up. So that'll be the kicker, I think, because I don't have any more Funko Pops to sell. So if it's like back to like $15, I'll know that that's what that was.
Yeah.
But, hey, anyways,
because essentially they can only give you enough money that they can still make money on it. So it depends on if it's something that's popular enough that it's. Mm-hmm. It's in demand because they can charge more for it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like he had The Northman on 4K Ultra DVD, Blu-ray, something. Like that's a new movie. He had a lot of movies kind of like that, like were like brand new and like this fancy thing. I'm like, maybe that bumped up some of the price. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I so miss going into Best Buy and just like going through all of their TV series, because I used to buy like so many TV series. Like I have Roseanne and I started buying The Office, and then all of a sudden when they stopped doing all that stuff, I'm like, well, now I've only got half series of things.
I know.
I'm like, crap, like no, what do? I've like got the first 2 seasons of Big Love. I'm like, where am I gonna find any of these things now? And it's like, now I'm mad. I only have like the first 2 seasons of True Blood. I'm like so mad. Because it's like if you look for those things now you got to pay premium because they don't exist.
I know.
But anywho, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
It's as always a pleasure. If you're watching this in replay and you have gotten all the way to the end, thanks, Allie.
Yeah.
And to everyone else who may be watching this in replay. Anyway, you all have a great night, and we'll see you next week for our reading sprints at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.